right, Philip, thank you so much for joining the show. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, man, I appreciate being here. It's been a long time. We actually just recorded on my show yesterday. So good to see you again.
Absolutely. So let's start with just your background and tell the audience kind of who you are, where you started, and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, I would say I came to all of this fitness, nutrition stuff late in life. Like many people, I grew up standard family with, some overweight people in my family with a history of heart disease and diabetes, things like that. I was always a kind of an overweight kid, never was into athletics. I never got into organized athletics. And then through most of my 20s and 30s, it was a process of experimentation, like most people doing all the wrong things, like
Yeah.
initially I had no clue what I was doing in the gym. I went through the freshman and sophomore 20, during college. I tried running, I even tried training for marathon or half marathon at one point in my 20s, and just sort of floated around, always not happy with how I looked, how I felt. It was sort of a vanity thing in my 20s, which is pretty common, especially with guys, I would say. Fortunately, my wife, yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? Fortunately, my wife looked past that, and we got married when I was in my mid 20s, and then around the age of 30, I was gonna have our first child, and I said, I've got to get in shape. I've got to figure this thing out. So what did I do? I did all the fad diets and I did CrossFit for about 8 years. Right?
You said 8 years?
8 years. I did CrossFit. Yeah. Now CrossFit is, I always like to say that there's pros and cons, but it introduced me to some really cool things, right? First time I ever touched a barbell was in CrossFit. First time I learned about conditioning, like what it actually felt to push yourself and push up your VO2 max and do some of this endurance stuff that I had never been exposed to. And the negatives are, of course, you don't necessarily focus on progressive overload and getting stronger, and there's always this chance of injury because you're constantly pushing yourself, with high reps and things like that. But it was a fun experience, and I would say after realizing that it wasn't doing it for me from like a body composition perspective, but also from a strength and endurance and just overall how I felt perspective as I was getting older. Another decade goes by, and we're talking 2019, right before the pandemic, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to turn 40. I said, okay, now I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. I've got to figure this out. And I just lucked upon starting a strength program that my coach at this same gym put me onto, because he had evolved away from CrossFit. He had evolved more towards strength and conditioning, a lot of compound movements and just really good, solid programming for strength. And he said, yeah, just do my strength program, man. It's 3-4 days a week. You're going to be squatting, deadlifting, pressing, and then some other fun stuff in there. And I started to see progress on the strength side, right? I started to get a little bigger, fill out the shirts a little more, push more weight around. There's the ego side to it. You want to lift more too. And come the pandemic, everything gets locked down. I was like starting to hit my stride. What do I do? Right? What do I do? All the gyms were closed. So I took that opportunity not to make excuses, but to actually start putting together a home gym while figuring out how to get creative, body weight stuff, dumbbell stuff, and so on, to kind of tide me over. But then all I had was time. So I started reading lots of books, listening to lots of podcasts. I got into Starting Strength and Mike Matthews and Eric Helms and Trexler, Greg Nuckols, Alan Aragon, like Bill Campbell, all the names out there of evidence-based nutrition. And my eyes were totally open to this whole new world of education, right? You and I were talking yesterday about is it education or is it application? And for me, it was both. I was lacking both, right? So I started to learn that the nutrition side of things that way, and started to track my food for the first time in my entire life, and really started to learn what I was putting in my mouth and how it was affecting my lifting and how it was affecting my weight. And all of those things started to converge. And I made a ton of progress over about a year and a half. That was like my big transformation in my life, I would say. And even among that time period, I had back surgery. I had an appendicitis.
Oof.
Appendicitis. I have an autoimmune disease that causes flare-ups as well, like in some of my joints. So despite all that, I kept pushing, kept growing. And then late 2021, I said, man, there's so much I've learned and I wish everybody else knew this stuff. So why don't I start a podcast? I love talking. I love rambling on and going on. And maybe people will listen to me. Maybe they won't. I'd been in Toastmasters for years as well, working on my public speaking skills. And one of their advanced projects was make a podcast. So I said, okay, let me try that. Go ahead and made my podcast. It was a passion project. And then one of my listeners, she was also a coworker of mine. She's a power lifter in the Connecticut USPA. And she said she wanted to be on the show. She came on the show. Her name is Tyler Ciro. And after the show, she said, I think with all this knowledge, you could be a good coach. You should try it out. And by the way, I need a new coach in a few months, she said, when my contract expires. So that led me to get educated on nutrition to a new degree, get my certification, become a nutrition coach. And that's where we are today.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah. I appreciate you telling me this story. That's amazing though. I mean, I didn't even know. So you did, I want to hit a couple of points you talked about because I think they're really relevant. First and foremost, CrossFit. Had no idea you did CrossFit. It's you get this split in the fitness community, people who love CrossFit, people who don't love CrossFit. So if you were to tell the average person who's just trying to like get in shape, is CrossFit worth it for them? Like, is that's something you would recommend to someone, or why not?
No, I would recommend just strength training straight up,
not CrossFit
as the first mode of fitness. And then if they want to do CrossFit, I would ask why. Or I guess if they don't know about CrossFit, I'm not going to just recommend it to them. If they come to me saying, hey, CrossFit looks awesome, the question is why? Is it because you like to move around a lot? Is it because you like all the athletic movements? Like, there's a lot of ways to incorporate what CrossFit does in a little more controlled way within a proper training program.
God, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost very similar to what I tell my clients too. I'm like, is this something you need? So I love that. I had no idea. So you said 2019 is kind of where everything really adjusted. So you're a certified nutrition expert then. That's kind of
I'm a certified nutrition coach. Yes.
Certified nutrition coach. Perfect. So what would you say was the most eye-opening part of it, going from 8 years of CrossFit and doing fad diets? I guess really actually the better question is before that is, what were the fad diets you tried?
Yeah, sure.
And what was the worst one and what was the best one?
So I tried Atkins. Like, I'm old enough that I remember Atkins.
I've done Atkins. Yeah.
I even might have tried Slim Fast, like way back in the day.
That's old.
Like, such disgusting. But yeah, Atkins, that was in college. And then in my 20s, I didn't really try anything specifically. And then in my late 20s, I did paleo. I was on a huge paleo kick for like 5 or 6 years. And, paleo, I love-hate relationship with it because there's a lot of good, good ingredients in paleo when you think of the diet, but then there's a lot you're cutting out, right? Like every single one of these, you're just cutting out a lot of stuff. Keto a little bit. And I'm trying to think, like, I want to say, did I do zone for a bit? Something like that. Cause that's big in CrossFit, is zone and paleo. And then it was just generally cutting out carbs, like a lot of people do. Yeah. So, and your question was,
which was the worst one, at least the worst one to adhere to, and then, or the worst one just to do and not see results. And then what was the best one for results?
None of them were good for results.
Really? Interesting. Okay.
No, well, it depends on, so we can talk a lot about that. What do we mean by results? Like fast fat loss. I would say both paleo and keto were effective for not fat loss, weight loss, fast weight loss. Okay. Meaning you can crash diet those quickly because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm going to cut out grains. I'm going to cut out carbs. And most of what people have in their diet include processed, highly processed foods that, by the way, are not carbs. They're carbs and fat, right? They're a combination of carbs and fat because that's the one combination you can't find in nature. And our brains just love it. Like the dopamine hit we get from that stuff is amazing. So you cut it out and all of a sudden your calories drop precipitously and you lose weight. But there's a lot of deleterious effects from that we can get into, like when you lose weight too quickly, when you don't have the proper macro balance and all that stuff. So I would say I kind of got into a maintenance mode where I was skinny fat for years, kind of just floating around, or then I would gain weight when I wasn't doing it. And it was back and forth. Body composition wasn't there though. Performance wasn't there. Strength wasn't there. All those things weren't served by those kinds of diets.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're not recommending any specific diet then?
I don't recommend a specific diet. No.
Interesting. Okay. So let's break that down a little bit. You said a bunch of things that the audience might not know what it means. So you differentiated fat and weight loss. So, I mean, you're the expert. I mean, you're the master here. So what would be in the simplest aspect? What's the difference? I mean, if someone says, "Hey, Scott, I want to lose weight," and I get this all the time, I want to lose weight. In reality, what they want to do is lose fat. How do you identify that difference to people?
Yeah. So there's something called body fat overshooting. Okay. Most people have dieted multiple times in their life. And I would say most people have had success losing weight at some point. Like most people have gone through a diet and experienced losing weight. Would you agree with that? Like it's rare that somebody has just never lost weight at some point.
I agree. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. At least most people. Yeah, not everyone, but yeah, most people.
Yeah. And if you're lacking a few key things, so if you're lacking a training signal for strength, and if you're lacking sufficient protein, every time you lose weight, some amount of that tissue is muscle. And that's the key thing I want people to be aware of. So when they go on a crash diet or they do keto and they're like, I lost 40 pounds in 2 months. Okay, well, the first 5 to 7 or more pounds is fluid, right? Because carbs aren't coming in, you're not storing as much glycogen. Boom, 5-7 pound loss. The rest of it is a combination of muscle and fat. And some of the evidence supports that this is up to 50% of the tissue.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
Every time you diet, you lose some of that muscle and then you inevitably regain it back. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, when you crash diet, and most people just crash diet without meaning to, right? This is just how it ends up happening. When you crash diet, your metabolism adapts, right? Metabolic adaptation, meaning it goes into a mode where it becomes more and more efficient, burns fewer and fewer calories as you go deeper into the diet, such that you need to eat even fewer calories to even maintain or lose your weight. Even worse, though, is something called hyperplasia, which is the muscle wasting or muscle loss that occurs causes you to get hungrier as well. So you're actually becoming hungrier and thinner and needing to, reduce your calories further to try to lose weight. What happens? You get cravings both emotionally and physically, and usually it's in the forms of fat, salts, and sugars. And so you start binging back the things that you probably cut out if we're talking like the keto diet. And 95% of people regain their weight within 5 years. That's just, on the record, 95% regain all the weight and then some within 5 years. And so when you regain the weight, what are you gaining back? Mostly fat.
All fat. Yeah.
Yeah. Very little is muscle. I mean, there's natural muscle gain, but there's very little is muscle. So now what happens as you go through life, even if you maintain your weight and you go up and down on these yo-yo diets, your body composition gets worse and worse. You get more and more skinny fat. You get more and more fat. So we want to turn that around and focus on weight loss and body composition. So you asked about what I tell clients. Well, if you have a lot of weight to lose, like we're talking 40, 50, 60 pounds, I do think there's a health aspect to losing that weight that's important. We need to do right away. And so in that case, we'll focus on training and moving properly and getting you eating right, but then getting into that deficit so that you do lose the weight in a controlled manner and hold on to as much muscle as you can. Everybody else, even if you have 30 pounds of weight to lose, I would love to convince you that you should build muscle first. Like in my opinion, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. But you know what I've seen, Scott, is especially with female clients will come in, I got to lose weight. And, first we take the patience approach of we're going to spend a few weeks in a maintenance phase first. We're going to get you sleeping right and training and getting enough protein. And in my case, we track our food, and I can talk all about the benefits and why we do that. But they set up all these really good lifestyle habits, which could take a while for some clients. It could be quick for others. And then we have the conversation again. We're like, okay, do you really want to spend the next 3 to 4 months in a deficit, right? Which is going to be, a little bit challenging. You're not going to be able to eat as much. Maybe it's the holidays coming up. So let's think about that. Or what if I told you can gain very little weight to no weight, but also build a lot of muscle and then be able to eat more calories in your diet, feel better, your hormones are going to be better, and you're going to improve your body composition, right?
Where do I sign up?
Yeah. It's tough. And so a lot of clients have come around to that and said, you know what, why don't we do that? Especially during the winter when you've got all the layers on and you don't care what you look like. Yeah.
I love that. So I heard you talk about starvation mode. I think this is probably one of I'm not sure if you actually use the word starvation mode, but that's kind of the essence of what you're getting at, is where someone diets and basically they go too low on their caloric intake. And so usually the number I've seen and what I tell my clients is you don't want to go below about 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day, because if you go below that, the body starts to basically say, I don't know what's going on here. I don't care that you want to lose weight. We're storing all of this. And not only that, but we're going to slow everything down so you can't even lose the weight to begin with. And so when someone that you meet is already kind of, because dieting is the thing, right? Everyone has got a diet, whether it's keto, paleo, Whole30, South Beach, Zone, whatever, right? Weight Watchers, everyone's dieting. And so what that means to me is that a lot of people already at least attempting to be in a caloric deficit. And I think that, what a lot of people do is they lose 5-10 pounds. They're feeling great. It's been a month or two. And they start to see this effect of, I've only lost 3 pounds this month. And then the next month, I didn't really lose any weight. And they have to keep lowering their calories, as you were talking about. What is your advice to break this cycle of basically going into starvation mode? So if you meet someone and they're like, oh my, like you're only eating like 800 calories a day, like that, of course you're not losing weight because your body's like telling you to go pound sand somewhere else. How do you, number one, convince someone not to do that? And then how do you think we get out of that mentality to begin with?
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking a client that comes to me that way, which is very common, we're going to first spend time in a recovery diet. So I'm not a big proponent anymore of classic reverse dieting, which is the term a lot of people use for like titrating up your calories gradually as your maintenance comes back up. I think the evidence shows that there's no need to do that, that you can jump straight to what we believe is your maintenance right now.
Interesting.
And have that recovery much more faster. And my clients all use an app called Macro Factor, which is by the guys at Stronger by Science. And it allows you to see what your expenditure is dynamically every day based on your weight and your food. So that allows us to make better decisions, because we can say, okay, the first few weeks, just eat as you're eating. I don't want you to change too much, but we're going to track everything. We're going to learn about your macro balance. We're going to learn about your intake, and we're going to figure out your true maintenance calories, right? Once we get there, then we know what we need to do to get you to the healthiest level of maintenance, where you're no longer gaining weight, but you're eating as much as you can, right? So if you're at, like you said, 1,400 calories, you may need to be at 2,200, and getting you to 2,200 will likely result in very little weight gain. It may be a couple pounds, and most of that's going to be fluid, but it's going to be very little gain, probably very little fat. That's hard for some clients, especially women coming in like, oh, you're going to make me eat all this food. But we do it gradually. We get them there. It takes a few weeks. And then I guess what was the question? Like, what do we do from that point? We go for a goal. So a lot of this discussion is around context. Like, I know when we talk beforehand, people want to know, what's the best food for this? Is there a bad food for this? Whatever. It's all about context of what we're going for, right? Are we trying to lose fat? Are we trying to reduce hunger in a diet? Are we trying to build muscle? So when we actually go into a fat loss phase, right, I'm not going to tell you have to eat this or have to eat that. I don't want you to think in a restrictive way. I want to think in an additive way. What do I need to include in my diet to serve my goals, right? If I'm hungry, what do I need to do? I might need more fibrous vegetables. Great. And so on. Go ahead, Scott. I can go on forever.
No, that's awesome. I love that. That's the first, I'm a nutrition coach as well. And what I do is I usually do the reverse dieting approach, which is interesting to hear that actually it's like, dude, like screw that, go right up to maintenance. Don't waste those 2, 3, 4 weeks. Just go, like, you're saving a bunch of time not doing that. So that's actually new to me. I'll have to look more into that. That's actually a really good idea. How do you know someone's in starvation? I think this is one of the biggest challenges, is that people don't realize that they're more irritable. They have less energy. How do you identify someone that is not eating enough calories?
Yeah, I think you hit on a few of them already. There's biofeedback is a huge part, right? It's stress, sleep, recovery, their energy, their mood, and how they feel, right? So there's that. There's also, anybody can Google like a standard metabolic rate based on your height, your gender, your all those things. And if 5'7" female, 170 pounds is eating 1,200 calories, then I know she's not at her maintenance. I just know she's not. I mean, with rare exceptions, right? Some people are just just have a lower metabolism, but it actually doesn't vary as much as people think.
It's really out. Everyone's actually pretty close. I mean, when you see on the label, like, based on 2000 calories, that there's a reason that's there, is because most people are right around that number. Yeah. So it's pretty, there's not a lot of variable in that.
Yeah. And in fact, the research by Henry Ponser and those guys, like the book Burn, where they did the double label water study, and they measured metabolic rate across the world, across populations, tribes and Western and everyone else, found that people are generally burning the same amount of calories no matter what, and no matter their activity level generally. And the biggest difference is fat-free mass. So the more muscle you have, the more you're going to burn. So I like to tell people there's two ways to shift your metabolism up. One is more permanent and one is temporary. The permanent way is to build muscle.
Yeah.
And it used to be argued that, well, muscle only burns a little more calories than fat, so it doesn't really compute. But we've found through science that there's a cascade of things that happen that actually cause even more calories to be burned than just that simple equation. There's all sorts of chemical signaling going on and things with hormones and stuff. And if you, like you and me, have personal experience with ourselves and with our clients, when you add muscle, you just burn a lot more calories. It just happens.
Yes, 100%.
Right? It just happens. Okay. Happens while you're in the process of building muscle for months and months and months. But then it also happens where, you go back into a diet, you're like, I could eat 200, 300 more calories a day than I used to. Each time it goes up and up. So that's like the permanent way. And then the short-term way is not what most people think. What do most people think they need to do to burn calories, Scott?
Cardio. Got to run, elliptical, Stairmaster, which yeah. I will say does, it's, if you need a quick boost or something, in a short span, it's not the worst thing in the world, but that's definitely everyone will spend hours every day doing that. And it's like not the most ideal way to do it.
Right. And I like how you pointed that out, that it's not always black and white, right? Like going back to the Ponser study I just mentioned, if you aren't constantly doing a lot of cardio, but then you do some extra cardio, it's going to have a big direct linear boost to your metabolism.
Yes.
But if you're running on a treadmill an hour every day at medium to high intensity, your body adapts to that, and you become so efficient that the 500 calories that the treadmill says on the machine, you might be burning 200 calories in reality. Right. And so now it's just this vicious cycle. So what can you do instead? Walk, right? Walk, move, pace, like get off your butt during the day, find ways to just be an active person. And you're going to see potentially several hundreds more calories a day of calorie burn just from being a little more active and getting more steps in. The sweet spot being like 7,500 or higher, I think is what the studies all say now in terms of the correlation with lower metabolic or lower mortality and lower disease, et cetera.
Well, don't they say like, 20 minutes a day, I think it decreases your chance of any long-term chronic illness by like half, basically, or right? it's maybe not half, but it's a high percentage, at least 30%, where it's like, yeah, if you walk 20 minutes of brisk, intent walking, not just like leisurely walking, you lower your risk for everything, and you burn way more calories randomly. So
yeah, that's 20 minutes is like maybe a mile, maybe a couple thousand steps, at least for most people.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. And that's an easy putt, talking about like, how do you do all this? Well, one step at a time, right? If you get 2,000 steps a day right now, try to get 4,000 steps, and so on.
That makes sense. Awesome. Yeah. So I want to circle back to actually one really important thing I really want to get through is, okay, so you talked about macros. Okay. So we know macros are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. We know within each of those categories, you have complex, you have simple, you have unsaturated, saturated, trans, you have amino acids and proteins. There is so much out there. I mean, like you talk to anyone on the street, there's people, I work at multiple different facilities. Still to this day, we get people go, oh, you're eating that, but that's carbohydrates. Isn't that bad for you? Or I can't have eggs because it has cholesterol. Or oh, I do a low fat diet. So let's dispel all the myths right here. In terms of macronutrients of the three, what should someone be having and what should someone not be having?
Right. So it depends on your goal, right?
Okay.
If your goal is to lose fat, build muscle, have more energy, have a sustainable way of eating, then the answer is you need them all. So if your goal is something extreme, like you have epilepsy and you know that the keto diet is going to help you with your medical condition, that would be maybe one of the few cases where I'd say you need to cut your macros. But let's look at context again. Okay, let's talk goals. There's protein, fats, and carbs. By the way, there's also alcohol, right? That's like the fourth macro. Yes. It does have energy, but it's, okay. So protein. essential amino acids you mentioned, right? So these are amino acids. They're joined by peptide bonds and they break into amino acids in our body. And protein is an amazing macronutrient, and we're all underfed with protein. Like that is the high, right? That's one of the biggest mistakes in society when it comes to the macros is protein is we fall far short in what we need.
What do people have and what should you have?
Yeah, right. So let's talk about why we need protein, right?
Okay,
so
yeah.
we need protein for building muscle, but we also need it, and I think almost more importantly, for preserving muscle, giving that anabolic signal while losing weight so that we lose fat and not muscle, right? As we get older, we need it more and more because of sarcopenia, right? Which is natural muscle loss from age, usually because we just haven't been training, not because we're old, but we haven't been training for many years because we're old and haven't done it. And then the other thing is, as you get older, your efficiency in converting the proteins into muscle mass decreases. So you actually need more protein overall and also more protein at each meal versus a younger person. Protein also can fill you up more than the other macros. It also has a higher thermic effect of feeding, so it burns more calories. Most people, so people need roughly 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. So I'm going to say the rule of thumb, just think 1 gram per pound. And that's your target body weight. So if you weigh 250 and you're trying to get to 200, you want to aim for somewhere around 200, maybe 180, maybe 210, but in that ballpark.
Okay.
If you're kind of a skinny male in your 20s and you're like 140, but you need to be 190 jacked.
Shots fired. That was,
you know what I'm saying? go. Well, hey, I got this guy, friend of mine. He's like always saying that I need to gain weight, but then you would aim for 190 or 200 grams.
Ideal body weight.
Yeah. Most people have, I would say, a third of what they need.
Really? Okay.
That's my experience. Like, especially like female clients coming in, they need 140 and they're eating 60. It's usually something like that. Because think about how most people eat. You have breakfast. What do you have for breakfast? Bagel, muffin, cereal,
carbs.
And nothing, right? Or coffee. A lot of people skip breakfast. So you don't have much protein unless you eat a lot of eggs or something like that. Lunch, people will have a sandwich, some cold cuts or something like that, right? Maybe leftovers. If you're working from home, you could have the leftovers. Then finally for dinner, people do end up having meat. If you're a meat eater. If you're vegetarian, it's a whole different discussion. And so if you add that up, you're talking 50, 60 grams of protein, right? And we need to get to something like 140, 150, something like that, depending on your size. So if you're listening and you don't have enough protein, how do you get there? One step at a time, right? So the way I like to start, at least with clients, is first we track our food. So we know what we're eating. And then we know, okay, we're eating 60 grams. Then we try to include protein in each meal. So if you eat breakfast, lunch, dinner right now, add protein to breakfast, lunch, dinner. I don't care the amount, just do it.
Right. How do you track? Right? How do you make someone track?
I don't make anyone do anything. I let them convince themselves it's the right thing to do. But how do you make someone track? No.
Well, I guess like when you say track, are you talking? Because I think there's a couple different methodologies. One is
for sure.
You're weighing stuff out on a scale and you're writing it down. How do you get someone from, if that's what you're talking about, how do you get someone from who's never done that to doing that?
Yeah, because that's a good point, right? Because you can technically just measure portions, right? You could use the palm, the thumb, and think, right? Technique. You can do just calories and protein, but I feel like one of the big mistakes people make with nutrition is thinking they could eat intuitively, even though they have no intuition. Okay. So think about what I said, right? The Western world and the food supply and the obesogenic environment we have, no matter how disciplined you are going to eat way more calories than you think. It's just been proven time and again. We underestimate by like 50%, even dietitians, 20 to 30%. And so unless you track the actual numbers of the energy going into your body, it's very hard to tell how much you're getting. Now, having said that, I can easily talk with somebody, sit them down and say, if you have protein 4 or 5 times a day and it's at least a portion, you're going to get in the ballpark of what you need, right? That's what it comes down to. It's like 5 feedings a day, a portion of protein, which would be, I don't know, what is that? 4 or 6 ounces of meat or something. But then when you want to mix it in and get variety, you're talking dairy and eggs and, plant-based sources of protein. It gets a little confusing for people. So for a lot of people, tracking the actual macros and weighing it can be liberating because it gives you information. It gives you like exactly what's going on. You can tweak it. You can use tracking as a mechanism for meal planning and for avoiding decision-making that leads to emotional eating. And then one day you can just stop doing it altogether because you have that skill and that intuition that you didn't have before.
So you have to build the intuition to be able to do intuitive eating,
exactly.
Basically. Okay, yeah, because most people, well, I just want to eat until, well, you don't have the intuition. Of course you can't. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, and your hormones don't give you the right hunger signals either. Yeah,
100%. I love that.
Yeah.
What would be, because I do want to go to fats and carbs, so those two, I think those get the, those are the ones that get the bad rap. What would be your top 2 to 3 sources of protein? Because people might hear that and go, oh, I'll have steak, or I'll have what should people be normally eating when it comes to protein?
I think steak is great. I think red meat is awesome. I
Delicious.
think red meat is underrated. It's like maybe the most nutritious animal source, sort of like game meat and organ meat, stuff that most people don't eat. I would say animal sources are top, and it's just because they're complete amino acids, right? Anything from an animal, eggs, dairy, and meat are complete amino acids. So start there. And frankly, if I thought of my diet or those of my clients who are omnivorous, I would say that's, I don't know, what is that, like 80% of the protein they probably get, maybe 70%, and then the rest come from plant sources.
Mm-hmm.
So
and when Philip says the essential amino acids, basically, I think there's 20 amino acids in your body. What, 12 are essential, 9. 8 or it's like 9 and 11, and so it's one of those 9, mixes, and some are essential, which and some are non-essential. So some your body makes, some your body doesn't make. And when you have animal protein, it has all of it in there for you, versus some plant proteins only have a handful. So you have to mix and match different foods to get all of the amino acids, which then produces the protein for you. So just
exactly. And we want the complete amino acids because they all serve different functions, leucine for muscle protein synthesis and all the other ones. But if you're a vegetarian or you like to eat a lot of plant-based products, I mean, a good combination would be pea and rice protein. That's, if it's hard to find that mixed, like with with a protein shake, but if you got like pea and rice separately and mixed them, it's kind of like eating rice and beans. They have both complementary proteins, so you get the full package, but then you just need to eat a lot of it. So like if you're vegetarian, you just need to eat a lot of it or have a lot of the shakes to get there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right. How about fats? What's going on with that? What should I have? I see all these different things. What should I do?
Yeah. I mean, as far as the number, a good rule of thumb is 30% of your calories from fat.
Okay.
Of which no more than a third from saturated fat. So like there's a small list of things, if you were to say, what would you reduce in your diet or not have too much of? Because I don't think there's any you have to completely eliminate necessarily. It would be having too much saturated fat, having trans fat. And the only other two that come to mind might be like alcohol and something else that I can't think of right now. Oh, like processed meats or something. But anyway, back to fats. So fats are extremely important as an energy storage device for hormones, especially reproductive hormones. So you might hear stories about bodybuilders when they get stage lean, like women become amenorrheic, right? They stop having their periods.
Yeah.
And men, their testosterone just plummets completely and takes a long time to recover. So estradiol, testosterone are affected by fat. People are probably familiar with omega-3 to 6 ratio, like omega-3 from fish oil, and how that maybe plays into metabolic disease. I mean, some of the evidence is a little more equivocal today, but it's good to eat fish, right? It's good to eat fish and maybe take fish oil if you need it. It's for cell growth, cell storage, or cell membranes, energy storage, all of that. So you need fat.
No, what's your number one? So someone's getting into nutrition, they're just starting out, their diet is horrible, and they're like, hey, you give me what's your favorite fat source that I should just have in my diet, generally speaking?
So what's your number one? So if their diet's horrible, here's the funny thing about fat is, like, unless you intentionally do a low fat diet, which used to be big in the 80s, you probably have the right amount of fat. You just may not have the right composition of fat types, right? You may have too much saturated fat versus unsaturated, right? So like, good fats, so to speak, would be the unsaturated fats like olive oil, avocados, things like that. And then the ones you want to limit would be the added saturated fats like butter. Butter's great. I'm not saying eliminate it at all, but having a giant chunk of butter and MCT oil in your coffee every day, bulletproof coffee, may be an issue for your metabolic health down the road. And if you do your blood work and measure your cholesterol, you may see that
it might be a little much.
Order.
Yeah.
Because it's all excess, right? It comes down to excess. Now, a really trashy diet, you probably have a lot of ultra processed foods. And we all know, like everybody knows, it's not great to eat all your foods from packages, right? Like we just know, I think everybody knows that. That's like a basic thing. I hope, maybe not.
Maybe. Oh.
Yeah, maybe. And if you think about packaged foods, the fats in there are just not the best fats. There are a lot of soybean oil, a lot of highly heated processed oils. I'll say seed oils, but I'm not on the bandwagon of like seed oils are the devil. Like I hear that, but I don't think the evidence supports that you have to cut out seed oils altogether.
I'm right in the middle on that. I'm a huge advocate of, I'll give you like 3 different oils. You got extra virgin olive oil. Yep. I think it's a coconut oil and avocado oil. Other than that, just I don't think it's worth the risk unless you are a chef who like cooks all the time. Like, don't even go near it. I'm like, it's not worth it. I love extra virgin olive oil. I think it's so good for you. So I'll just douse things in that. I'm like, okay,
and I agree. Don't keep those other oils in your cabinet. Like, don't cook with them yourself.
Yeah.
I'm saying that they're found in things that you might buy. So if you eat a Pop-Tart or something, I don't know, it might have a little bit of something like that in there, soybean oil, but you limit in your diet, you limit those things to like 10% of your diet, you're good,
So it's not about what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's not about you have to be this ultra mega highly organic, nothing but the very best. It's a matter of finding balance with your life. Basically, it's okay. It might have some bad ingredients in it, but overall, is it a step in the right direction? Overall, are you generally healthy? And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. And most people are not facing the problem of their fat to saturated fat ratio being the biggest problem that they need to deal with right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's probably just calories, movement, strength training, protein. Like it really is that simple for most people. Or sleep. I get 4 hours of sleep a night. Okay, right there. That's let's work on that. Yeah.
All right. What about carbs? The evil carbs.
I love carbs. So just so people know, I don't know, you can see me visually. I eat like 450 grams of carbs a day. So right there, mic drop.
Wow.
Right? No, because I'm in a building phase and I'm eating almost 4,000 calories. So so let's get into that. Energy and fiber. Those are the 2 things that carbs are important for. So fiber is, of course, important for a lot of things: digestive health, bowel movements, the gut microbiome. We're learning more and more how important the gut microbiome is.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. And even eating fiber, it fills you up. Fiber has, on average, 2.5 grams per calorie. So it's not 0, like the net carb calculations that you think but it's less than other carbs, which have about 4. And don't count on that, but like it helps, when you have a lot of fiber in your diet. So fiber, I don't think a lot of people disagree too much on fiber, because you're talking fruits and vegetables. Where people disagree are like whole grains. I throw whole grains in there. And then of course the low carbs, oh, no. Okay. I can't do whole grains because that's grains. And you're talking bread and all that. But there's fiber in those. If you look at a plain bagel versus a whole grain bagel, you're talking 2 versus 8 grams of fiber. So the whole grain bagel has much fewer calories and fills you up. I mean, those are the kind of smart choices you can make. So that's fiber. But energy, okay, this is where people miss out on the advantages of carbs. Carbs are sugars, right? They are glucose, fructose, sucrose, lactose, glycogen, all those sugars. So for any what we call glycolytic activity, an activity that requires glucose for energy, this is CrossFit, this is running, this is strength training. People don't realize that. Like muscle contractions during strength training require glycogen, and you can deplete as much as 40% in a training bout. And it's not evenly distributed either. For some people, it's more distributed toward the actual muscles being worked. So you need that glycogen. People on keto will constantly tell you, I'm drained. I don't have much energy. Like, my lifting progress isn't there. Or they might lie to you and say that it's all perfect. That's fine. But in reality, the evidence shows, when they look at bodybuilders on a Western diet or normal diet versus a keto diet, like you gain way more muscle on a normal diet.
I've done keto, and I did it for 2 months right after college. I mean, and I did it mostly because I wanted to lose about 20 pounds, and I did it successfully. I did the whole, I did it. I was very rigid, but man, like, it is so difficult. I did it for 2 months. Like, it wasn't like this whole lifestyle thing, and it is so hard. And if you don't wean off of it the right way, you're going to gain everything back. And so it's so very difficult to do no carbs. And I was working out every day and doing like an hour of cardio, which I probably shouldn't have been doing at the time. So keto was rough. I mean, I don't recommend it to anyone, but not to say that it can't work. It's just, it's tough.
I always have to give that footnote to him. Like, well, if you really like keto and that's sustainable for you and blah, 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 blah. But 99.9% of people, it's like, no, they can't really cut carbs for the rest of their lives. I mean, this is the diversity of our food supply that's out there. That carbs is a huge part of it. I mean, huge. It should be the majority of the grams of food that you eat, for the most part, except when you're in a losing phase. We can get into details, but carbs give you that energy. So what does that mean? You can get more reps, you build strength faster, you build more muscle, and improve your body composition. It's anti-catabolic. It prevents muscle loss. I mean, carbs are almost my favorite macro in some cases, especially for muscle building. Yeah.
Why do they get a bad rap?
That's a good question. You have to go maybe ask Ansel Keys back in the day, or, all the guys that want to sell their programs. I think it has to do with the ancestral movement, maybe, where it was like, well, all this agriculture that started 10,000 years ago didn't exist for a million years or whatever. So of course we didn't have all these grains and all these things, but it's all BS. And it's part of a balanced, diet, healthy diet.
What about the epidemic in at least the US specifically of the sugar, the sugar content that we have? I mean, I think that's on my end where carbs currently get a bad kind of name. First off, how do you feel about sugar? And then, we'll start with that. How do you feel about sugar? I guess would be better.
So I'm of the sustainable flexibility approach here. Here's my question. If you're trying to lose weight, trying to lose fat, and all you have is sugary soda and processed foods with a lot of sugar, I'm not going to say, hey, you're eating too much sugar. I'm going to say, hey, how do you feel? Oh man, I feel hungry all the time. Okay. What about the gym? I can't really perform. Okay. What you're doing is you're crowding out your protein. You're crowding out your fiber. You're crowding out a bunch of things that should be included in your diet by having so much sugar. So I'm not going to vilify sugar one lick. What I'm going to say is that for your goal, you need to include the things in your diet that serve your goal. If you're eating like a kid, if you're eating candy and sugar and cake, you're going to be lacking all these other things. So I like to think of that in not a restrictive mindset, but include things and then let them crowd out the things that are interfering with what you're trying to get to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. So basically it's none of this stuff is bad. It's a matter of understanding what are you going for. And then if you have a certain amount of just space available in your body per day, and you have to fill with the things that are going to help you towards the goal. And it may mean you got to cut out certain things such as candy or sweets or whatever it is in order to fill your bucket, with what you need to fill it with. And so now the specific ratios, I mean, that stuff comes down to specific goals. And as long as you're being, you have kind of a combination of everything, that's kind of what you should go for.
Yeah. And it depends on your goal again. Like I have clients that both are losing and gaining. And if you're trying to eat 3,500 calories a day, you've got room for some of these things. Like you've got room for added sugars. I mean, I had a glass of chocolate milk today, and it has sugar in it, but I'm trying to gain, I'm up to 4,000 calories. And it was a half a glass of chocolate milk. Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to be a hypocrite either. People want to enjoy food. And there's, I think, a little bit of allowance in your diet for indulgences. And what I don't like is the idea that when you try to abstain completely from something that's not a trigger food. So like there's trigger foods that are emotional triggers that you may have to have a rule that like, no, just cut off completely or make it very difficult in my environment to get access to it. But if it's not something like that, you have to make allowances for these indulgences such that whether you're losing fat or gaining muscle, your diet isn't that much different. It's just the degrees to which you have these things in there.
Yeah. And I think the shocking part that people, at least when I teach them, is they don't realize, like, if they're in a quote unquote gaining or bulking area where they're trying to gain weight, gain muscle, or in a losing / trying to lose weight, like, you don't really, I mean, you're just eating more or less of generally the same stuff. You don't need to change. Like there's different ratios. You change ratios, but you're still eating the same foods. So and people find that like, oh, I didn't realize I have to eat the same food. I'm like, yeah, you just increase or decrease based on the ratio that you need for your body. And I won't be respectful of your time. I know we're running out here, but I got a couple more really, I think, questions that people would love to hear. My first one is, what are, you talked about flexible dieting basically, and, not demonizing any food specifically, but if I had to tell you, gun to your head, what are the 3 foods, if I just leave, you're someone brand new, you're trying to get into it and you want to add to your routine, what are 3 foods that you would recommend, that person, regardless of their goal, I mean, their goal is to get in shape, maybe lose 40 pounds or whatever it might be, but just health wise, what would be 3 foods you'd have them add into their routine? And then what are like the 3 worst foods or ingredients that you've seen in foods?
Yeah. So I want them to add proteins, fats, and carbs.
Well, yeah.
I'm just kidding. To 3 foods to add, probably. So I'm not going to be so specific to say like individual foods, but I'm going to say, vegetables, like just in general vegetables, because some people literally don't eat any vegetables.
So like broccoli or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fibrous vegetables. Okay. Fibrous vegetables. Although I have nothing against starches either. Potatoes, believe it or not, white potatoes are the most satiating food of all foods, according to a satiety index. Wow. Now that's without being slathered with sour cream and butter.
You gotta look at the potato diet. There's a potato diet. Yeah.
Maybe it's based on that, right?
A lot of people lose weight on the potato diet because it's all you can eat and you have to do it unsalted with nothing else. And people just get sick of eating it. So they just lose weight. It's actually very interesting.
Yeah. So fibrous vegetables. And then, I don't think it's as simplistic that you can just add specific foods, but it's going to depend on the individual and what they're lacking for their goals. Some sort of animal source, that gives you good protein, maybe eggs. Like, I'm not a fan of calling anything a superfood, but eggs are pretty amazing. They have a little bit of everything in there. And if you grow chickens, like we have chickens, we have 8 chickens.
Oh, really?
Oh man. Pasture raised chickens that get all your leftovers every day produce the most deep orange yolks you've ever seen. They're just full of nutrition. Good stuff. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you said, lean protein, maybe eggs, and then, fibrous vegetables.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
When you say, how lean are you talking for the protein source?
Did I say lean protein?
Did you not say lean? I thought you did lean protein. Maybe.
I don't know what I said. But actually, if I had to pick the leanest protein, would be seafood. I mean, I encourage people to eat seafood because of the omega-3s and the high level protein. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and then tomorrow you ask me again, I'll give you 3 different foods.
Of course, yeah. But it'll give people a good place to start. Okay, well, I wasn't eating eggs before. Maybe they should be eating eggs because it is a very healthy food generally.
It's a hard thing recommending specific foods, right? So I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a registered dietitian. So I tend to work with clients and with their lifestyle, what they like. So like one of the questions I ask in the intake is, what do you like and don't like? And if you don't like eggs, I may see if there's a way you can eat eggs that you do like, but if not, I'm going to give up and move to the next thing.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because if you don't like something, you're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it if you don't like it. So you can't force it. Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah. But I will recommend things. And sometimes I get surprised, like, hey, have you ever had cottage cheese? So many people haven't had cottage cheese. And like, it kind of looks gross, looks weird. And I've had so many people try it for the first time. They're like, wow, that's actually pretty good. By the way, it's one of the highest protein forms of dairy you can get for a snack. So go for it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as worst ingredients, I mean, trans fats are pretty much, there's no redeeming value to those, being highly heated and manufactured in a lab, but they're also kind of banned at this point. They're hard to find anywhere. Processed meats is an interesting one. Like, I like bacon as much as the next person, but there is evidence that shows too much processed meat in your diet could be associated with cardiovascular disease and also colon cancer, I think. But don't confuse it with too much red meat. That's what I want people to know. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you could eat plenty of lean red meat. People do it all the time and are perfectly healthy, like steak. But I think processed meat, like cold cuts
Yeah,
and
there's just a lot of
bacon
ingredients
and
in
stuff
there
like
that you don't want to deal with. 'Cause it's not,
Nitrates, all that.
nitrites. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can get like slightly more natural versions of those and maybe uncured versions of that. The only other thing would be, we mentioned saturated fat before, but maybe alcohol. Like I do drink, but sometimes alcohol is a problem for people because they can't control themselves once they've had one or two, and then they have a lot more. But also alcohol, like any liquid beverage, like Coke, is an easy way to get way too many calories. So it's also an easy way to reduce calories. So
Yeah.
that's the way I like to look at it.
All right. Awesome. No, I appreciate that. So you talked about, you at what, 30 years old, you're like, hey, I'm going to get in shape right now. This is it. And then 8 years later, you're like, oh crap. And then you're about to have your first kid. First off, I guess, how does the average person stay healthy, eat the right food, cook the right meals when they work a 9-to-5 job, when they have kids, when the kid has to go to soccer, when you're stressed out? Like, I think that's what a lot of people, no one disagrees with what we're saying. I feel like everyone understands they got to eat healthy, but what happens is, and as you know, like life gets in the way. You got to stay late. Your boss called this kid's sick. The wife's got to do that. You're getting fired at from all directions. How do you eat healthy? How do you plan out your day, your meals? How do you do that when all of these things are time vampires or stress vampires, just, are just injecting themselves in your life?
Well, first you can hire a coach. Definitely, who can help you with that. And if you're, a high achieving type person who doesn't have time, then they can help you and take some of that burden for you. Just like I hire a mechanic for my car because I'm not going to know what the heck I'm doing, under there. But a few things come to mind. Meal prep and planning, really planning ahead of time, is kind of the way to take out some of the stress during the week. And it doesn't have to be exotic. It doesn't have to be Tupperwares all over and like planning every single meal. It could just be identifying a few simple mix and match ingredients that you like, a couple meats, couple starches, couple vegetables, prepping them on the weekend in bulk, and then knowing how you can combine them during the week. You can go a little more precise in that, and you could actually plan out a routine type of day. So if you're basically cooking and eating at home, it makes it a lot easier, right? Yeah. If you're not eating out a lot, there's a separate conversation about people who travel a lot. That's a different thing. But if you cook and eat at home, you're the mom, let's say, who takes care of the family, and you do that, stick to a lot of the same stuff. Just kind of rotate through 3 or 4 things, right? Breakfast and even lunch can be mostly the same most days, and then dinner can vary it up. And you can look at your day ahead of time and say, okay, what are we having for each meal? You could do it on paper. You could do it in a spreadsheet. You could even use your food logging app. Like if you log food, it can take the stress out of it by kind of pre-logging stuff and saying, this is my plan. It's like your training plan. Like, here's my exercises, sets, and reps. I'm just going to do it. I get up in the morning, I'm stressed, I got all this stuff to worry about, but I don't have to worry about the food because I know exactly what's planned for me. And you're going to hit your macros and calories and all that way. So it's funny. I actually have all these recipe packs that I share sometimes with clients. And there is one that's like a 5-ingredient recipe pack because it's such a huge thing that people get stressed over like recipes and ingredients and stuff, so tracking can be liberating, keeping things that you need on a regular basis in the pantry. Like you could do a whole podcast about meal planning and prepping, but it's planning ahead.
I love that. Philip, I love it. I appreciate your time. Where can people find you?
Sure. You can go to my website, witsandweights.com. You can find me online or Instagram at Wits and Weights. And you can check out my podcast, Wits and Weights.
Wits and Weights. I love it. I love it. All right. And everything he just said will be in the show notes. So don't forget to click on that and visit the website. And I'm imagining you can, you have a contact me page if you're interested in any sort of nutrition coaching.
Absolutely. There's contact me. You can ask me a question for the podcast. You can just say hi and I'll say hi back.
All right. I love it. Philip, I really appreciate the time and all the insight that you gave. And thank you for joining the show.
Thanks, Scott. Really love being on the show. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.